Let's talk supply chain. So welcome back to the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so you joined us on the show about 2 years ago, and I can't believe it's that long. I mean, you gave the listeners an incredible insight into who you are and what you do. I'm excited to have you back because so many things have changed for both of us, but especially for you. And I can't believe that we only just met each other a few months ago at Home Delivery World in person. Like we never met in person, but it actually doesn't surprise me because of our schedules. We're all over the place. So why don't you start by giving us an update? What have you been up to in the 2 years since you last came on the show?
Oh my. Let's see. Last year, was it last year? I was the top woman in supply chain for Supply and Demand Chain Executive Magazine,
Yes.
which was a total shocker to me. And then this year, I am 4 years in a row in the top 100 women in supply chain.
Nice.
And just recently, I was selected as one of Women's Wear Daily most influential ESG leaders.
Congrats.
And let's see what else. I've been running around trying to raise our institutional fund one, and we are on target so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, for heading towards a Q1 close, first close. And let's
And
see
what
what
does,
else.
before you go on, what does that all mean? Like explain
Oh,
that a little bit, just in case people don't know the jargon.
so venture funds, they can't publicly solicit when they're institutional, which this fund is. So I can't say how much or that we're raising, but the first investors, the anchor, has is committing to put in capital, and we're going through the docs and getting all of our ducks in a row so that you have the first amount of capital called, and that's your first close. So you have a little nut in the bank to work from to build on for the subsequent closes till you get to the full amount.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about what you're working on a little bit later. And the women, what was it? Workwear Daily?
Oh,
So
Women's Wear Daily.
Women's Wear Daily. So, and that you were in Times Square, like you were on the screen for Times Square. I mean, that must have been incredible. I know you couldn't go in person, but just seeing your name in lights. I mean, talk to
Oh
us
my
about that.
goodness. That was crazy. I sent it to my mom and my husband, and my husband, of course, posted to Facebook something like, you married good when your wife's on the Jumbotron in Times Square. And of course, my mom was so excited to see it live streamed. And Lisita, can I brag about you now? Because I told her some big announcements were coming. So it was lovely to have them enjoy the experience, even though I was in another state and didn't see it in person.
Well, that's awesome. And you talked about, being on different lists and so many things that have happened for you in the last couple of years. What does that all mean for you? I get this question all the time because, people see different things. You get nominated for this and then get an award for this and things like that. So what does that all mean for you?
Yeah. So for me personally, it means an additional credential. Women and people of color are always needing to find third party validation of your expertise. And so,
That is so
uh,
true, right?
yeah, it's even harder for us to stand in our own knowledge and expertise without that third party validation. So for me, it's just mega and super meaningful, especially because most of these I had no idea I was even nominated. So that's
Right.
extra validating.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an announcement. I don't know when it's coming out either. But I was voted in by future leaders in supply chain. And when those kind of things happen, you're like, wait a second, I need to take a minute, right? Because actually what we're doing and running towards on a everyday basis is really creating an impact that maybe we don't necessarily stop and take the time to really consider, right?
Absolutely. It's so cool when you realize that other people are not only watching what you're doing, but are really celebrating your impact and the work that you're putting out. You know, I like to be heads down and focus on doing good work. And when I put my head up and I see somebody else has recognized it, it's amazing.
I think you and I are very similar. We're always like, do in the do, right? We're always doing every single day, just like moving things forward and moving things forward and moving the pieces around and trying to figure things out, right? And trying to see what works, what doesn't work. And you and I are very similar in that. And you're right, we get really busy, but sometimes we got to bring our head up and really take a look at what that work is actually doing. So congratulations on all of that, because
Thank you.
it's truly inspirational. Some of the things that you talk about, some of the things that you're doing, the impact that you're making in a variety of different ways, right? Sustainability, in supply chain, it all comes together and helps to move industry forward. It helps to inspire the next generation, bring new innovators into the industry, and really show the art of what is possible. Because some of these things, like, you've really forged that path to really make happen. It wasn't something that was here maybe even, 2, 3, maybe 5 years ago. It's the same with me with supply chain media, right? It wasn't even a word.
Yeah.
Um, and so talk to me about what you're currently doing right now. One of the things is that you're a co-founder of REFASHIONed. Can you remind us of what that organization does? And then maybe give us a glimpse into your growing portfolio, because you have an eye on growth. You're not sitting back and chilling out anytime soon.
No. Yeah. So Refashion Ventures is an early stage venture fund that invests in industrial transformation through supply chain innovations. So we invest across data and AI, advanced materials, advanced manufacturing, and next gen logistics. Three of those four categories involve atoms and physical things. Most VCs are terrified of, but there's a reason. We believe that supply chain and industrial transformation and the climate crisis are opposite sides of the same coin. And
Hmm.
we are not going to solve for the problems that are impacting our planet just through software alone. So you need to invest in the physical and the cyber physical if you're going to create the changes that we need so that we can continue to exist on this planet.
Absolutely. What's what did you say? Cyber?
Cyber physical. So
What is
it's
that?
another way of saying IoT, Internet of Things, something that is, robotics and AI combined with a human's guidance.
I'm going to start using that term instead of IoT. It just sounds so much better. um,
Cyber physical.
and you have this industrial transformation fund. Can you talk to us about some of the businesses that you're investing in? Like, give us an
Ooh, yes.
example of what they're doing and how they're creating an impact and why it's so important to have this fund.
Yeah, so the reason I didn't get to see myself on the Jumbotron in Times Square is I was in DC at a DoD advanced manufacturing conference.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, that was eye-opening.
Tell
Oh
us.
my goodness. Every session, I was sitting there with my jaw dropped that they literally had screens from early decks I had created in like 2016 when I was first coming up with my thesis for if I'm going to build a fund, it's not going to look like a traditional fund. It's going to have this community, it's going to have early capital, and then it's going to have an operating company to accelerate the adoption of all of our technologies. And there were slides in these decks saying for us to create this needed change, we need a community, early capital and startups. And on theirs, they had foreign investment, which kind of shocked me because it was a DoD conference. But it was a pleasant surprise to see that everything that I've been dedicating my life to, my life's work, is exactly where the DoD is arriving as what's needed to create the change that we need in this country. However, I don't believe that regulation or all of these nonprofits are going to be moving the needle fast enough. So fortunately for us, disruptors like me, my maniacal plan has been to invest in the early stage companies that actually the DoD specifically said they're looking for, like Arcstone, which is an MES, that's a manufacturing execution system. It helps to basically digitize factory floors.
Okay.
And it's so disruptive because the standard MES players are huge enterprise applications that require tons of consultancies to
Right.
come on board and do the analysis and setup and maintain on top of the huge annual fees for the enterprise stack. This platform is the opposite of that. They've given you a freemium version that any small factory can get started digitizing themselves with. It is drag and drop. So you drag and drop and draw your floor plan. And then even the tasks and dependencies and uploading of videos for stations is drag and drop. So it's really simple for anyone to adopt. And when you jump from the freemium version to the enterprise version, it's not like going from free to like, oh my God, I need a consultancy. It is modular and you only pay for the modules that you're using. So it's fraction of the cost of these huge enterprise systems. And they can come in, Arcstone comes in and does this 21-day, they call it a hackathon, to teach your own team how to maintain, deploy, manage the system, and identify your internal stakeholders that will be champions and teach other people how to maintain this system. So it's really just a totally different paradigm, a more current paradigm for technology adoption. And then the last piece of Arcstone is this ArcNet platform that allows you to see across a network of factories and have a universal dashboard for throughput, capacity, load bearing, which is ultimately what every supply chain needs nowadays. You need to have a centralized control tower because the only certainty being risk and climate risk and geopolitical risk and all these things that keep popping up every day, you need to have a distributed collaborative network of factories. And it's next to impossible to think that we're going to retrofit the current globalized paradigm of billions of nodes. It's a lot easier to start with the localized network infrastructure. So Arcstone is one of the technologies that I was like, oh my God, I have that. DoD, come hit me up. It's in our portfolio.
And did you have a call with them set up before you left Washington?
Well, I did get up and speak because, you know, I'm that woman at an event. And after every session, I went to the mic and a ton of people came up and talked to me. And I got all these cards and more than just Arcstone, Jibe is another one that is going to revolutionize the industry. They are, it's a technology that's about a little bit bigger than an Apple Watch. And he's the founder, created the first Dell thermal fingerprint technology to touch and unlock your computer.
Okay.
So that was his first company. No big deal. Just,
no big deal.
You know, IPO'd and publicly traded still very successfully. He took a few years off and he came back and he's designed the device of my dreams. When I first went into an apparel factory and saw all these stacks of paper everywhere, my brain immediately went to, why? We should just have devices on everything and have it so you don't need to log into an iPad, find an app at each station, put in your credentials, do the task. So his devices, he's thrown away the supercomputer that's in our phones and in Apple Watches and made it just NFC, RFID, send and receive, simple compute. And it has a no-code open source protocol to be able to do whatever you need these devices to do in whichever application. And his objective is to digitize frontline workers that generally are on paper and clipboards.
Right.
And that's the majority of the global workforce. So this frontline workers from hospitals, from warehouses and manufacturing and shipping yards, all of them need a better way to be digitally connected connected. And in our factories, we're going to be using the Jibe devices to have on bins. So we scan a QR code after a pattern piece is cut, and there's a QR code in the seam, put it in the bin. Now the bin knows what's in it because the Jibe device has that data. I walk up to that bin with my Jibe device on my wrist, and without having to log in, it sends data to my wrist device of which stations I need to go to with the pieces in that bin.
Wait,
I walk up to the first station, and it just pushes to my Jibe device the tasks that I need to do with which pieces. I pull them out of the bin, zip, 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 real-time data and SAM calculations.
Amazing.
Game changing.
And it is so game changing. And what I was thinking about when you were talking about this is the creativity that we need in supply chain that's kind of been stifled over the years. In the fact that when you think about a warehouse and you think about designing it for digital, you think about interior design. I think about a conversation that I had with somebody who had just come out of school and talked about how warehousing was interior design for her and how we need to change the way that we think about these innovations and how we send the data and how we actually work smarter, not harder. How do we do all of these things? How do we get more creative in the tasks that do need to get done, but ultimately don't need to be the manual processes that we've all lived with for years. Now, one of the things that you talked about was community. And I am really big on community. Community is really important no matter what you are doing, whether it's personal or professional. So talk to us about what impact the community that you're bringing together is going to make across that industry. I mean, I can only just imagine thinking about those two examples that you shared, how much impact those are going to make. But if you bring them together, right, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, so my the vision I had initially in 2016 when I first met Brian, I still have old decks I could pull up and be like, oh my God, we're full circle. It's I envisioned having this community fund and an operating company because the best way to predict the future is to build it. And so being a disruptor, I get antsy when things are moving too slowly. And right now, people aren't acting as if our planet is on fire, which it is. And we need to accelerate this adoption of technologies needed to drive the paradigm shifts so that we can continue to exist on this planet. And that's not hyperbole. You know, if you think it is, you're sitting here la 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 with your ears and eyes shut. So our community has grown to about 5,000 members on every continent except for Antarctica. And we have over 40,000 first degree connections of builders and buyers of supply chain technology that like to collaborate and have dialogue around what they're building so that they can get to adoption and scale. Ooh, my camera just.
I know.
So this has given us inbound deal flow from about 148 countries.
Amazing.
Which Brian and I were looking at our Airtable database, like, is that pie chart right? Dang, there's so many slices and colors in there. But yeah, it really is critical for supply chain innovation to come from anywhere. And knowing that every country and every category of individual has creativity and is ideating the solutions that we need, we're looking from global and seeking to bring them to the US.
Amazing. And just think about it. I mean, supply chain is global, right? We're all around the world. We all have different challenges that we're solving for, but we are also solving for some of the same challenges, which is around sustainability. And I know that that is at the heart of what you do, right? We talked about, we talked about textile waste on the last show. I remember very vividly, and I've seen all of the pictures since, which is just crazy. You shared some facts that really surprised me. And we've seen a number of climate issues this year. And I think the world saw the hottest summer on record. So the evidence for change is only growing. Like you said, it's on fire, right? I still get comments in on my LinkedIn about it just being woke, which scares the absolute bejesus out of me. So talk to
Yeah.
us about, what's going on, why our systems need to be completely reworked if we have a hope of stopping, reversing some of this damage and really having a place for us all to live.
Yeah. So our fund is called Refashioned, not just because I love fashion and that's the lens that I look at everything of supply chain through. It is because it is the future or past tense of the word refashion. And we need to refashion all of our systems end to end, from raw material inputs to water usage in product development through manufacturing, shipping, distribution, sales, last mile. All of it needs to be entirely refashioned. And so we're called that because we like to think that we're thinking in the future tense
Mhm.
so that we're already investing in and deploying and building the future as it needs to be so that we can continue to exist on this planet. It's interesting how many people I share some key stats around the fashion industry with, and usually the first reaction is, oh, well, we're focused on chips and batteries. And I said, you do know that textiles are in everything, right? They're in your batteries, they're in your tires for vehicles, they're in your headliners for cars. You cannot have innovation without fibers. And I mean, optic fibers, geotextiles, there's so many applications and use cases. So it's, I think, just a matter of making sure that we're being visible. We're making sure that the right people across industries are hearing that it's not one thing that's going to be the magic bullet. It needs to be an end-to-end systemic design thinking approach to understanding the real causes and the target. Where are we headed? Because we need to fashion the solutions for the outcomes that we're intending to achieve. Right now, the systems are designed for the outcomes they're currently achieving. And if we want to see any change, there's no time for band-aids or incremental shifts anymore.
No, there really isn't. And we've really seen that this last year. And so that comment that I had just a couple of weeks ago about this being woke, I was like, really? Like, are we still there? Because that is terrifying.
Yeah, I
Absolutely
think
terrifying.
I wonder if people just don't watch the news anymore because nobody has regular TV. And so it's just a
True.
filter of what you want to hear and the world you want to believe exists. But, Mother Nature doesn't care what news filters you're watching.
Mhm.
She will have her way, and regardless of whether or not you're preparing for it.
Yeah. So, and that's something that I want to talk to you about because it's going to take everybody, right? For us to be able to work together, to be able to recreate this design thinking. Some people might be listening to what you're saying and they're like, that is way over my head. I don't even know how I can help with that. I think it's amazing. But then what do I do? Right? What do I do as an individual? Or maybe what do I do as an organization? And if what I do today is so small, is it really going to make a difference? So, what would your advice or maybe top tips be for companies or even people looking to initiate change?
Yeah, that's a great question. God, if I had all the answers, I'd be a
You do
billionaire.
have all the answers. What
But
are you talking about?
I do have one insight that I took away from the DoD conference this week that, again, solidified companies like Jive that we're investing in and why they're so important.
Right.
So, this one speaker, I believe it was from MIT, was presenting a case study about two factories, Factory A and Factory B, that both were technically identical in the same region, producing the same things, same amount of workforce. And Factory A was doing around 25 million in revenue. Factory B was something like 40, 45 million.
Mhm.
So what's the difference? And the guy asked the audience, and I was shouting out, automation, kind of right. The only difference between those two factories
Mhm.
was that they, Factory B with the higher revenue, gave their workforce incentivization to get higher pay and bonuses. And just with that incentivization, based on their throughput capacity, quality, et cetera, they got these bonuses, which overall increased the revenue for the entire factory.
Right.
So I think the number one comment I would have is think differently. You can't achieve different outcomes using the same systems and processes you had before. So don't be afraid to do something drastically differently, and assess, always assess the impact, because something as simple as listening to your workforce and having them feel empowered and like they are part of ownership of their facility will yield unprecedented results.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I think for people or individuals, I think the intentionality is also the same, right?
Mhm.
Understanding, being aware, what do you do every single day? How does it impact, a variety of different things? How does it impact you? How does it impact your family? How does it impact the environment? Are there slight changes that you can make in your routine, the things that you buy, um, how you make buying decisions personally and professionally as well really goes a long way. And if we're sort of asking ourselves that question as we go through our day-to-day lives, I really think that we can make a difference. Those aren't just small things that we're doing. These are things that are a necessity right now that we need to keep doing and doing and doing, right?
Ultimately, business needs to make the changes. I know that we've had tons of decades of campaigns saying that we as individual consumers need to recycle and make better choices. Yes, but the biggest impact is through our value chains. If you look at the $100 trillion global GDP, the opposite side of that is this HSBC and BCG study that said that the amount of capital that we need to deploy by 2050 to achieve net zero is, guess how much money? $100 trillion. Do you think
Whew.
that's a coincidence? So they are definitely intertwined, and the biggest impact we can have is through localization of our value chains. If you are making, producing, shipping, and recycling everything, and better than recycling, have circular design and infrastructure in place, so you're using the same assets over and over again locally, that is the most sustainable way we can drive forward as a society. We just need to get the right stakeholders understanding that this isn't a cost center. This is an opportunity to have a whole new value chain with potentially greater margins, even though there's an upfront cost.
So maybe it's better questions, right? Putting the pressure on the organizations, the companies that we're buying from, asking different questions, right? And
Yep.
like you said, thinking differently. I mean, that's also what we can do from an individual basis. Do you have any resources that somebody could tap into to really take a look at what other people are doing and maybe try to think differently within their organizations to make that happen?
So, I mean, we write a ton. Brian writes a ton, I should say. He's the writer on our team. And I'm personally always inspired by our portfolio companies. I
Mm,
think that right now, if you're reading anything past 2021
mhm.
in its ideation or creation date, you're looking into old methodology, because
Mm,
we're in this primordial soup right now
yeah.
of the emergence of this entirely new paradigm. So looking backwards will only get you so far. You need to be in the thick of it right now and talking to both the builders and buyers of these technologies to understand what is being built today that
Yeah.
never existed before.
Yeah, and I read a fascinating article about the development of water soluble circuit boards, which was very
Mhm.
interesting recently. So there's a lot of really great information out there if you're looking for it and you know what questions that you're asking or what information that you're looking for. But what are some of the innovations that you're seeing that when it comes to establishing some of those new systems, exploring more sustainable manufacturing, recycling techniques, the circular that you talked about?
Yeah.
And what are your predictions or maybe insights for the future of these types of innovations?
Yeah, so we have the very first deal that I brought to Refashioned and invested in is called Simply Fiber,
Mhm.
and it's SIMPLIFYBER. And Simply Fiber's CEO is Maria Insher Aurang, and she is the former head of design at Vera Wang, Calvin Klein, Eden, and she worked at McQueen. So she's brilliant creatively, but she's also in Mensa. So she's equal, like crazy, smart, brilliant lady. She has created this new process that is going from Simply Fiber to a finished object in 2 steps. And
Mm,
that's using, cotton, hemp, bamboo, whatever natural cellulose fibers, and her proprietary all natural chemistry to create a slurry that can be injected into molds or 3D printed. And you eliminate needing the steps of extruding filament, spinning yarn, knitting, weaving, cut, and sew. It's
wow.
and even dyeing. The dye could be injected directly into the slurry.
Huh,
So you go from a pile of fibers to a finished object in 2 steps. And the
amazing.
machine that they've created to produce these objects is only 3 foot by 12 foot. So micro factories, ubiquitous creation without any negative impact. It can be
Right.
dissolved and reconstituted into new objects over and over again, and it's all natural and biodegradable. The use
Wow.
cases across footwear, accessories, fashion, home, automotive, packaging are just endless. So that's the type of entirely new paradigm thinking
Yeah.
that gets us really excited about at Refashioned.
Talk about think differently, right? What are we doing with our
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing? What are our manufacturers doing? How are they thinking differently? I mean, if we can do this in fashion and accessories, we can do this in so many different places. Now, you're also a mentor at the Founder Institute, which is an organization that's specifically designed to turn ideas into startups, which doesn't surprise me, or even, startups into global businesses. Talk to us about that. Do you think that there's a growth in entrepreneurship and young people coming up with the desire to found and, run their own businesses? What do you think?
Yes, it's interesting. So at the Women's Wear Daily event last week, there was a whole panel of these Gen Z kids that were talking about what they love and what their expectations and hopes and dreams are. It was really eye-opening. It was pretty evenly split amongst people that, want to work at companies, so go get a job
Mhm.
doing something sustainable or fabulous in fashion. There was a bunch of people that want to be influencers, which is becoming like the number one thing amongst Gen Z. Why should I go work for someone else? I can make money from my blog or whatever. And people that want to start companies.
Mm.
So I think it is eye-opening to see that those are the options. Like when I was graduating from college, I just knew I could get a job. I
Yeah.
didn't have any other options remotely on my radar. So, yay. I'm really excited that we have the next generation coming up with their own ideas of how they want to change the world. Entrepreneurship absolutely has become more and more part of the zeitgeist. Everyone can be a founder and have a side hustle, whether it's selling handmade stuff on Etsy or building a tech company.
Mm.
It's more of a norm, which I'm thankful for, because in certain societies it still very much is not. My
Right.
husband's Norwegian, and I lived in Norway 20 years ago, and I joked when we were walking around one day, I saw some little girl selling cupcakes and lemonade on the side of the road. I said, oh my God, the first entrepreneur that I'm seeing in Norway. Now, fast forward to today, and entrepreneurship is huge in Norway, but it
Yeah.
wasn't back then.
Right. Amazing. Amazing. And I'm seeing the same thing too, right? Even from a freelancer standpoint, right? Being able to, we have a team of freelancers and being able to do that and empower them in their own businesses while, also creating that community of peers and other entrepreneurs that they can lean on, get referrals from. I mean, it's incredible what we can really, really do with that. Now, you are a very busy person. You have a lot of responsibilities. Your business is pretty intense. I mean, you're tackling the future of the planet. I mean, the world is literally
That's
on
all.
your shoulders. So how do you switch off? How do you achieve work-life balance? Like, do you actually achieve it? What do you think?
Oh Lord, I don't think there isn't any balance, but there's self-care.
Okay.
And I do turn off or try to turn off on weekends and spend time with my family, go on really long bike rides with my hubby.
Nice.
That's being out in nature, whether it's on a hike with my dog or biking for 37 miles with my hubby. That's the place where I know I can just turn off and listen to nature. And usually that's needed to have more ideas come in. If
That's
you're
true.
always go, 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 you're not allowing time for serendipity and for your brain to what is it called when you're in that half asleep half awake state or unfocused, ideas always come in.
Uh-huh.
Allowing for that should be built into your calendar.
It's usually when I'm on the massage table and I don't have a pen and paper and I'm like, okay, I can't fall asleep because I need to remember
Yes.
what that idea was because I need to write it down later. But I think you live on the East Coast. So what do you do in the winter?
In
Sorry.
the
I mean, I'm
winter,
just curious.
yeah. No, that's a valid question. I mean, in the winter, we like to ski.
Okay.
And what we're, Norwegian families, so we're not afraid of a little snow, although we haven't had it for a few winters now.
Right.
But, treadmill and hygge is a word in Norwegian. It means cozy. So it's my
Okay.
favorite time of year. There's an excuse to just be cozy and wear big fluffy socks and drink hot cocoa and
I
curl
love
up on the sofa with a book.
I love it, but I do not like winter. So I'm going to be finding a way to get out of it very, very soon. So finally, and I hate to wrap this up, but what's next for you in your journey? I'm sure you've got so much going on and up your sleeve.
Oh man, I have so many irons in the fire that I can't yet talk about, but big things and big collaborations. Just keep speaking my truth to power and finding or having the people that it resonates with find me, which is super, like, that's a superpower. I don't think enough people talk about that when you truly know yourself and your value and what you were put on this planet to do, and you live in that confidently, it attracts a vortex of people that are looking for it.
Mhm.
So be your authentic self and you'll bring the right people to you. If you're not quite there yet, you'll notice that there isn't all this serendipity and things coming your way. But when you hit your stride with that, it's game changing.
Yes, I can absolutely relate to that. And, thank you so much for all the work that you are doing because you really are making a difference and making an impact, not only in supply chain, but again, for the planet and everything that we need to do to move forward. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you. So, Lisa's passion is absolutely infectious. And what she's doing for sustainability and supply chain is really something we all need to pay attention to. I really encourage everyone listening to go and check out what she's doing at REFASHIONed with the Worldwide Supply Chain Federation and with all of her other interests. Get inspired. Go make changes in your own lives and organizations because time really is running out. So, did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you, according to the National Centers for Environmental Information, there have been 15 confirmed billion-dollar weather and climate disasters events this year in the US. But what is the cost of those devastating events? Well, the total cost of these events exceeds $39.7 billion, and they have resulted in 113 direct and indirect fatalities. So, there you have even more evidence that we need to act now. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your incredible journey and your insights with all of us today.
Thank you.